Thank you, Madam Chairman. I would just say, based on the comments that were just made, that just a reminder that babies who are aborted are normally buried or cremated. It is not discarded. And so to follow this premise, you would be saying that to bury a loved one rather than donating to science is immoral. And I clearly reject that. We have to treat these babies with the dignity that they deserve. And I think the logic is flawed to say just because you don't donate a loved one to science, it's immoral. But I want to talk a little bit about the consent. I was a former teacher for many years working with teenagers, some that had a time in their life when they had an unexpected pregnancy, and these are very difficult issues. So I would like to put up Exhibit start with Exhibit D, and say this question will start off with Mrs. Cunningham. The Secretary of HHS issued the Belmont report, which says that consent is valid only if voluntarily given, and that, quote, inducements that would ordinarily be acceptable may become undue influences if the subject is especially vulnerable. So if you could put up Exhibit A3, the consent form that is used in some of these clinics. I would like to ask you, in your view, does this form violate our government's own guidance in its inducement to women considering abortion, especially with the promise and the statement in the very first opening of the consent form says, research using the blood from pregnant women and tissue that has been aborted has been used to treat and find a cure for such diseases as diabetes, Parkinson's disease, Alzheimer's disease, cancer, and AIDS. I'll say I lost my mother last year with Alzheimer's. I am not aware that there is a cure out there. This was news to me. And so, Mrs. Cunningham, do you think that this consent form complies with HHS's mandate against inducement?
It would be interesting to know from the women's perspective. Thank you. It would be interesting to know from the women's perspective if this does induce her to sign the form, this idea of the promise of cures, which is a very powerful motivator. The concern I have is that the standards that we have typically for fetal tissue donation are just absent here. And so in addition to the voluntariness, there's just the thoroughness of the consent seems to be missing in this form.
I would concur with the HHS informed consent checklist itself that is online. A couple of other requirements. There's supposed to be of consent is a statement describing the extent, if any, to which confidentiality of records identifying the subject will be maintained. I see no such statement in this exhibit. It also says research rights and injury and explanation of whom to contact for answers to pertinent questions about the research subjects' rights. If I was a teenage girl in a crisis situation there being presented with this form, I don't see it there. Do you see it on the form?
I do not.
Okay. Ms. Charo, last August, speaking about fetal tissue research while at a NARAL conference, you were quoted as saying, now remember, this is not about using an actual embryo or an actual fetus. This is leftover tissue after the fetus is long dead. Please put up Exhibit E. In this email, the tissue procurement manager of a tissue business described to a university researcher the immediacy of obtaining tissue from aborted fetuses. The manager wrote that after, quote, the doctor determines the abortion is complete, the procurement technician is allowed to begin procurement. This takes a couple of minutes. So given these comments from the tissue procurer, how can you contend that tissue procurement occurs, quote, after the fetus is long dead?
I don't recall speaking at a NARAL conference last August, but there was a conference I spoke at considerably longer ago, speaking of length of time, and I believe that that comment was being made in the context of the cell lines, which really are from fetuses that were aborted a very, very long time ago. But I don't have a transcript of my own remarks with me. Thank you.
Okay. Dr. Donovan, isn't the tissue harvested immediately after the cells? Are they still alive? The cells are still alive?
Absolutely. They want fresh cells.
Okay. Very good. I yield back. Thank you.